Darshan here, Shashi, and a lot of people think about how to build this into a constructive way, either in terms of courses or you know, Darshan wrote about creating a consortium around integrative medicine and One Health and so on. Other people have, if we can reimagine the Ayurveda biology program that Vishnu, Megha and others run with mainstream, life sciences institution in some format. If you can sort of write a document of even a paragraph or two we can collectively write, that would be interesting to see what we can do. Dr. Meera talked about a few things and so on. That would be, we have a public health person who's flown in from Jaipur, who started an public health institute there. So how do we think? This is this article that I wrote in Nature India, which didn't get published, which is how to reimagine Ph.D. training in public health and science. So maybe we can think about some of these issues. I'll just take 5 minutes and tell you how does one move this. Is that right? Yeah. So the picture actually shows that the first picture actually shows the people who set up the lab, Vinay, Betty, and Anu, and so on. Betty, Vinay, Viji, and others. But I think there's an experiment Anu did, which is this one, which has lasted 25 years. And this is there was a paper that Bob Weinberg's group wrote around that period, which argued that cancers operate in two ways. You have immortalization followed by the transformation process, and that's activated RAS mutations drive the transformation process. And we knew that in cervical cancers there were activated RAS mutations. And so pretty much for 25 years, and I must give thanks to the TIFR and SBS system, that they have supported somebody to ask one question for 25 years, which is what might phenocopy activated RAS. And this is the Anu figure, which we've kept going. Anu also, of course, did the collaborative work with Paolo Dotto, looking at notch and keratinocyte differentiation and so on. And we got a lot of flack from the system because collaboration is a bad thing. But really, I think there should be a re-examination of this whole role of collaborations and so on and so forth. We're a far more confident country. Some of the systems which are put in place about isolation and not collaboration and so on, surely we can now think differently. The business world and many other parts of the world have aspects of the Indian society have moved on. Maybe science has stayed back a little bit. So that was pretty much the figure that drove the lab for this. The second part was what Jivisha and others did, which is look at cancer stem cells, which is, and as I was telling Marshi, it'd be really nice if Vijay, one of the things that we can do is ask the question. Saurabh had a very interesting figure where he showed that loss of function and gain of function in two different tumors gives you the same thing. And pretty much you could argue that Notch does also that. So maybe we can think a little bit about 25 years down the line with these traditional assays versus all these omics and there's all these kinds of high throughput data and so on. How does these systems converge, and how do you deal with loss of function versus gain of function in these systems and modern therapeutics and that kind of thing. In terms of this. One of the reasons I got interested, so Chitra, I'll talk a little bit about Chitra's work in St. John's because I think that's very important. Shashi wrote this review and it tells you something about science and it's very puzzling. Shashi wrote this review in 2019 where we looked at all the genetic events of cervical cancer. She sort of catalogued it. And Elsevier wrote to us that it was their most downloaded paper. So we got something right, but we should really ask the question, what is the larger implications of this work and so on in terms of that. This is not our work, this is from a paper elsewhere, but this is what we think has been happening in these tumors that you have, and pretty much if you look at the work that Deepa did with Meg and Anu and Tessie and Pradeep and everybody did with all these pathways, this is what the pathway looks like. There's this whole thing. And my grandfather's Ayurvedic Association apart, the reason I got so interested in working with TDU is because network pharmacology probably targets these pathways. So traditional medicine probably works on multiple pathways and not single ligand. So the way you probably visualize a lot of pharmacology is single ligands, and I think traditional pharmacology, which has to be looked at in an evidence-based manner, actually works across multiple pathways. And the Chinese have actually been doing that for a fair amount of time now. They're ahead of us in terms of network pharmacology and traditional medicine, and this is something that we can think about. Um, so, couple of thoughts for all of you to think. I mean, I think I've been suggesting to people that we reimagine medical education. So Macaulay in 1835. So in the period 1820 to 1835, when the British first set up medicine, there was actually Ayurveda, Unani, and allopathic medicine together. Then there was this Anglicists versus Orientalists, I got the word exactly right, debate in 1835, and then the Anglicists won and they shut down integrative medicine. I think we lost a very valuable niche because the creative energy which would have been there of these various streams of medicine together would have been a global leader. So I would ask you to, within the regulatory framework, within all the issues that we have to take care of, how do we rebuild integrative medicine in various ways? So I made a few suggestions to Dr. Vinod Paul, who's the health person on NITI Aayog, and he said they're good suggestions. One of them is immersions and electives and history of medicine, and Dr. Sanjay has been talking a lot about interdisciplinarity in courses and so on. The Americans, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Flexner report. So the Flexner report was about